Welcome back to another live and amplified Indie Fusion podcast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we are back at it again with another amazing podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Macy Dot. How's it going today?
So good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing really well. It's Friday night, and I don't have to work a high school football game, so I'm extremely happy right now.
I love it. That's so awesome.
But being from Texas, you know all about the importance of high school football around these parts. So
I absolutely do. And I cheered in high school for Lake Travis. So that was a
mm,
really big deal where I'm from. So I totally understand. I love high school football.
nice, nice. Oh, so you're in Nashville now. How's Nashville been treating you?
It's been amazing. It was my dream since I was a little girl to move to Nashville. And it has been everything that I've ever dreamed of. It's been really, obviously there's been some times where I miss Texas, but I love Nashville.
Nice. Now, do you still have family out here in Texas, or did they come with you to Nashville?
I do. I Most of my family is in Texas actually. Um, and I think my parents will probably end up moving to this area at some point, but they have not yet.
Nice. I often tell, so I'm originally from Chicago, but I've been in Waco here for about 5 years. And I often tell my sister, I'm like, if we ever want dad to move closer back to home, all I got to do is move to Nashville and
Yes.
he's going to move closer. Like, cause he lives down in South Florida and we're just kind of spread out. And my sister's like, kind of like everybody to be a little bit closer because
Yeah,
it's not an easy trip. And I'm like, if
yeah.
I
That's
moved to
funny.
Nashville, yeah,
I
good.
have family in Florida too, in Tallahassee actually.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're spread out between Florida and Texas as well, and then I'm in Nashville. So it's crazy.
Nice. I actually lived in Tallahassee for 2 years.
No way.
Yeah. I worked for the ABC TV station there. So,
That's so cool. We're making all kinds of connections.
right. I see, but the only difference was I wasn't a big fan of Tallahassee. Um, but that was just like my personal preference and where I was at the time. Like it was very expensive to live in Tallahassee, and I was making $15 an hour working
Right,
there. So yeah.
right. Absolutely. Yep.
But excited to have you here. Excited to chat a little bit. So, growing up in Texas, was your family musical, or how's music kind of come into play?
They are not musical at all. They're very far from it. They're gonna laugh when they watch this because we always say that. But I have the most amazing support system. My family is so supportive. My parents are so extremely supportive and encouraging of this career. I'm an only child, so that's why it's kind of shocking that they haven't moved here yet. But they've definitely been talking about it and thinking about it. But no, my family is not musical. I grew up listening to Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn, Shania Twain. Oddly enough, I loved Shania Twain when I was really young. So I grew up on country music, but none of my family is musical.
Nice. Is so you didn't get exposed to a lot of like the that Texas red dirt stuff, the
You
that
know,
kind of stuff.
I will say I'm probably the biggest Randy Rogers fan you've ever met. So I do love Texas country music. I'm a big fan of that. Green Hall, love Green Hall.
Mhm.
And I'm from Lindale, so that's the hometown of Miranda Lambert. And
Mhm.
I took guitar lessons from John DeFore, who taught Casey Musgraves and Miranda Lambert. So I just grew up with a passion for music and grew up with it kind of all around me. So um, that's kind of how I fell in love with it.
Nice. And it was the guitar kind of the thing that brought you in, or did you kind of start singing first?
So I started singing when I was 2. I
Mm.
sang the national anthem in public for the first time when I was 2, and I think everybody thought it was a cute little thing to have a patriotic little kid singing the national anthem.
Yeah.
And then I kept doing it for years, and my mom was like, "Okay, so I think she's serious about this." So, one of my favorite people in the whole world, Carly Schmidt, got me in guitar lessons with John DeFore.
Yeah.
And when I started working with John, he really taught me the art of storytelling through songwriting. So not only did I learn how to play guitar, but he really taught me a lot about telling a story from various perspectives and being authentic and genuine. And he got me to start performing my original songs when I would play shows when I was super young. So he was such a big part of growing up and really falling in love and having passion for music. He was amazing.
Nice. So you really started to cut your teeth in Texas before you moved to Nashville?
Yeah, I grew up performing. I mean, at all the little Opries, and
Mm,
even when I was really, really young, I would go sing Walking After Midnight on every Opry stage in Texas, pretty much.
nice.
And Country When Country Wasn't Cool, all those good songs, I sang those. And then John got me to start playing guitar and playing my own songs, which was really cool. So yeah, I just kind of grew up with it my whole life.
Nice. Now, you mentioned that you grew up with it your entire life, but was there like a specific moment that like a light switch moment where you were like, this is what I'm meant to be doing?
You know, I think I have that moment often.
No.
There's kind of, I call them God winks, but it's like kind of when I'm doing something that was a goal for a long time and it almost feels not impossible, but like it won't happen for a long time. And like, I get a call and it's like, do you want to do this? Or we'd love to have you do this. And that's when I'm like, okay, I think this is what I'm meant to be doing.
Yep.
So it's just moments like, I'm trying to think of something specific. I won the BMI Dolly Parton Songwriters Award
Oh wow.
last year. And that was a really, really big moment for me. When I moved to Nashville, I really started focusing on my songwriting. And I'm a songwriting major at Belmont. So that's a really big aspect of my career right now. And I entered a song, Texas, Tennessee, that I wrote with Carly. And I actually entered for a class at Belmont. One of our assignments was to enter a song into a contest or somewhere where we get feedback. So I did it, forgot about it. It's school. There's
A hundred things
like
going on.
right,
Yeah.
and I was on a study abroad trip in Spain and I get a call from BMI. They're like, we want to congratulate you. You're the Dolly Parton winner. And I was like, what? They were like, you applied a while ago. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then it hit me and I was like, I completely forgot about that.
Right.
And because I had also applied for other ones that I did through my class.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really special moment. And I'm so grateful for BMI and just all that they do to support songwriters. So that was one of those moments where I was like, wow, this is really special.
Yeah, that sounds cool. It sounds like Belmont's got a really cool like I talk to a lot of musicians that go to Belmont, like in their music major, music business, like whatever their major is, but I'd never really get an opportunity to talk about like the actual benefits and how it's set up and all this stuff. And the way you're kind of describing it makes it seem like it's a like not just a normal degree. Like if you're a songwriter major, like whatever, it's not like a normal degree where you just take classes. It feels like one class builds on top of the next class, on top of the next class, and it just kind of sets you up.
Absolutely. Um, so my minor's in music business.
Mhm.
And this semester is my last, so it feels really full circle. I'm taking artist development, the artist team. Every class that I'm taking this semester is music business, like a music
Yeah,
class. And I've really learned a lot from my time at Belmont. It's been really incredible. I've met so many incredible, talented artists and songwriters. It's really crazy. Like the people
yeah,
that you meet there and you just start talking to them and they're like, "Will you listen to this song? It's a recent one," and you're listening to it and you're like, "This is incredible." Like, and it's everywhere. It's
yeah,
everywhere you go and they're like, "Oh, I played all the instruments. I wrote it. I produced it. I'm the engineer." And it's just crazy that
yeah,
there's so much talent in one place.
right.
And, I always say a big part of being in the music industry is collaboration. And people ask, is it really competitive? And in my opinion, in, my experience, not at all. It's everybody wants to work with each other,
Mhm,
and you meet someone that you're just in awe of their talent. And so you want to work with them and you want to learn from them.
mhm.
So that's been a really, really cool aspect of being able to go to Belmont.
Yeah.
I dreamed of going to Belmont since I was in third grade. I stood up at our career day and said, I'm going to move to Nashville, go to Belmont University, and major in country music. So
So specific. I love it.
I
That's
know, and I don't even know why I thought there was a country music major, but maybe I need to invent that and propose that idea.
right, right. I do love the idea. When you say it's not competitive, I think it probably is, but not in a bad way. Like when everybody
Mhm.
thinks like competitive, oh, it's a bad way. I'm gonna cut the ankles out from underneath whoever I need to get ahead. Yeah, that's one part of being competitive. That's a very toxic way to, not a toxic way to look at it, but that's a toxic form of competitiveness.
Right.
But this just kind of seems like you want to help each other succeed, and you're challenging each other, and it's that iron sharpens iron type situation because everybody's really good at certain aspects of the music industry or every aspect, like
Right.
whatever it is, and it's just like it's competitive but in the best way possible.
Well, and if you think about it, when you're writing with your peers and they start to see success or their songs start to get noticed and you're a writer on that song,
Mm,
you know, that can be beneficial for you too. And I'm not saying that's the reason to write with them, but I do think that they say that your tribe starts to become successful at the same time and you all
mhm.
kind of go up in the industry together, which is such a cool way to think about it. And I really admire that Nashville kind of works that way.
Yeah,
But it's so cool that every day I meet someone new that, is either is a freshman or has been at Belmont while I've been there, and I'm still meeting people that I'm blown away by.
right, right. It's one of those things where it's like every industry or every form of artistry, whether you're film, comedy, music, whether you're in football, baseball, they all have that competitiveness, but friendship, like, or camaraderie.
Mhm.
And I feel like music had been missing that for a very long time because there was such limited space for music to kind of, get out there, especially when it was very much CD placement in the
Mhm.
stores, and then all you had was radio. So, but now
Right,
with everything being digital and there's an infinite amount of storefront, it's you kind of get that opportunity for like you're building your tribe and you all come up together and you don't really have to worry about somebody taking somebody else's
right,
attention.
exactly. And I think that is largely because of social media
Mhm.
and the changes that we've seen in streaming and stuff like that, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned you've known since you were really young that you wanted to go to Belmont.
Mhm.
Was it just because it was in Nashville, or why was it always you wanted to go to Belmont?
I actually toured campus when I was really young, and it's beautiful. I don't know if you've been on campus, but it is a stunning campus. Um, and I kind of started to research all of the people that I love to listen to that graduated from Belmont. So I think I realized at a young age, okay, this might be a step in the right direction for me to start my career. And I had a babysitter whose her older brother, I think, went to Belmont. And when I would go over to their house, they would play music, and it was like maybe because my family wasn't musical, I'd never been in that environment where they
Mm,
just sit around and, like, play and harmonize, and they're just jamming, you know? And I thought that was so cool that they went to school to do that. And, obviously, my parents are very big on me going to college. My parents are both in education, so that
yeah,
was really important to them, and I was thinking, "Okay, well, if I have to go to college, I want to go for music."
yeah,
And we grew up going to Nashville, visiting Nashville. I feel like on every family trip we ever went on, we went to Nashville.
yeah.
So, I just fell in love with the city and at a young age. I mean, it was crazy. I only applied to Belmont when it was time to apply for colleges, so I kind of was like, "I'm going all in."
Fair, fair. And here you are approaching your final, or not approaching, you're in your final semester. So,
I'm so sad. I'm actually getting emotional about it. We had our first day of classes last week, so it was really weird realization that this is my last of being a student, which is exciting,
Yeah.
but a weird time.
Yeah. And so now that you're kind of in your final semester, it what's the plans after school? Like, are you working on music right now to be ready to go once you graduate, or where are you kind of at in that space?
So I am hopefully releasing a single in the spring. I've been in the studio recording it, and I actually wrote it with two Belmont girls, and they're from Texas. So
Nice.
that's super fun. I'm hopefully releasing that in the spring. It's still kind of in progress and in the works. But last year we did Houston Rodeo, and I'm thinking about maybe doing a little run of that.
Nice.
So it's still kind of in, I'm kind of planning out my right after graduation plans, but I'll be doing music full time. So I'll be writing and performing all day, every day, everywhere,
Nice.
all the time.
Good. Getting out, hitting the road,
Yep.
doing that run between Nashville and Texas, and
Yes.
man, that run never gets dull. There's
It never gets easier.
that that is true too. Very true.
Southwest is my best friend, let me tell you.
Right? Well, I make that every time I come out to Nashville, I make that drive. And I
Mm,
tell you, driving through Arkansas is, I thought driving through West Texas was rough. Driving through Arkansas is rough.
I I try not to drive
Mhm,
as much as I can just because it's so much easier to fly. But when I had to go back and forth from college, like when I would go home for the summer,
mhm.
that drive was brutal. It
Right,
was so brutal.
right. I don't know. I grew up, so my dad's a pilot, or was a pilot. He retired a few years back. And ever since I lost my ability to fly, like, because with him being a pilot, we got certain perks to fly for free or discounted rates.
Right.
Um, and once I actually had to become a paying customer, I was just like, this isn't fun anymore. Like when I was
Yeah.
a kid, it was fun and all this stuff, but now it's like, okay, now I could fly out of Waco if I feel like it, but that's
Right.
expensive. And
Mm.
then driving to Dallas, I hate driving to Dallas. That's like the bane of my existence.
Yeah,
And
it's pretty rough.
so, but you know, I like
But
to
you know
drive though.
what? Here is one pro to flying is they give you snacks. But if you drive, you can go to Bucky's. So I think you win,
Yes.
actually.
So what is your go-to Bucky's order? Or not order, what do you get usually at Bucky's?
Gummy bears every single time.
Really? Okay.
Every single time. Without a doubt. Every single time I get gummy bears.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
What about you? I'm curious.
So I used to always go there for the barbecue, but
Okay.
now their barbecue sandwiches are so dang expensive. Usually I'll just go grab a monster. That's just like my
Okay.
go-to drink. And
Okay.
then I'll either get, if I'm needing something sweet, I'll get a thing of beaver nuggets.
Those are really good.
And if I need something, or I'll get beef jerky and then maybe like a bag of candy or something, like just whatever I'm feeling in the moment in
Yep.
their candy
There's
aisle.
so many choices.
Right.
You won't go hungry.
Right. I've not tried. I keep seeing every time I go in there, they're always making fudge fresh, like just
Mhm.
right there. And it's like I grew up eating fudge all the time, but now it's just like I can't. That's gonna kill me later. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
but that's cool.
Understandable.
Oh, so you're hoping? You said you're hoping to have a new single out in the springtime.
Yeah, I have been in the studio. My producer lives in Austin, so I really only get in the studio when I'm home, and I am interning at Backstage Nashville this
Nice.
semester. I don't know if you've been to that show. It's a really cool show. It's a hit songwriter show at Third and Lindsley every Saturday. So I can't really travel this semester, so we're kind of communicating over the phone about all that good stuff. But there's so much that goes into it that, I haven't set a date yet. But in the spring, it'll be out.
Awesome. How's the internship been going? Did you just start it, or did you start at the beginning of the summer?
I just started it. Last week was my first week. So tomorrow will be my second day. It was so incredible.
Yeah.
I I love writers' rounds. I love that they're intimate and that you get to hear the story behind the song. And this specific round is hit songwriters, but to start the show, Brittany, who is my supervisor, she's amazing. She will bring in like a Belmont student, or I will get to perform, or like an up and coming songwriter starts the show, which I think is a really cool way to tie everything together. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's just a really cool idea that she wants to support up and coming independent, aspiring artists and songwriters as well. So it's Heidi Newfield will be there tomorrow. So I'm really excited about that. I grew up listening to Heidi, so it'll be really cool. And it's been great so far. So I'm excited.
Nice. And now, do you hand as part of your internship, are you doing more like artist relationship type stuff, like working with the artist, or are you working more like on the production aspect of things?
It's a little bit of everything.
Hmm.
I'm helping with social media, which is I've come to learn is a passion of mine. I actually
Nice.
love creating content and editing. It's really fun. Um, and I help with yeah, the artist stuff if they ever need anything and
Yeah.
like communicating with them and Brittany. And then welcoming people and getting to talk to people that are traveling in, which is really cool and really interesting to see where people are coming from and how they heard about the show. And then we have a lot of merchandise, so I'll help with that at the end of the show. I'm kind of just all over the place, to be
Nice.
honest. It's fun though because it's not the same thing every
Mhm.
week. It'll be different and it'll change, which is really cool. So
Nice. So you're kind of getting to learn all the different especially as an up and coming musician, all the different aspects that you need to be concerned about once you start putting on your own shows.
right, right. And that's what I was talking to. So I got there and two of the other girls that also work at Backstage Nashville went to Belmont. So that was
Mhm.
really cool to get there on my first day and they were there. But that's what I was telling them. I was like, I was kind of nervous because I'm always on the other side of
Mhm.
this. And it's not very often that I'm, setting up
Mhm.
and getting to see people come into the show and watch and listen and interact with them, and be a listener. I love being a listener. I love going to the listening room is actually one of my favorite spots.
Nice.
Um, it's just such a cool environment. And I feel like it's such a great learning opportunity for me to I think every artist and songwriter should actively try to be a listener and to
Mhm.
go to a show and just learn and take
Mhm.
everything in. I think it's so cool, and I definitely will never take that for granted. So,
Nice. Who are you listening to right now? Like who's on your Spotify playlist or
some of my favorites right now are Brent Cobb and Lucas Nelson. Katie Offerman is one of my
yeah,
favorites. Jenna Paulette, I really like Jenna Paulette. Sarah Buxton is a songwriter, amazing songwriter,
mhm,
and she also has music out for her artistry, but I love her too. Gosh, I don't know. I have so many.
nice.
And then I randomly will just like listen to Randy Rogers like 3 times a day. So
Right. Hey, you know what though? That's good. Like just mixing the up and coming with the old class.
yes,
That's something I
yes.
had to start doing because last year, you know, how, like Spotify at the end of the year will do the
Hmm.
your year review or whatever. Um, like my top 50 or whatever, they were all independent musicians, which is good. Like it reinforces what Live and Amplified stands for, which is
Yes.
helping independent musicians. And then I realized I would start talking to these musicians and they'd bring up like these like the top 40 artists or like what's happening in country radio and I'd have no idea who they were talking about. I was like, "Oh, I don't know who uh you know, like at the time I wasn't really paying attention. I knew who Jelly Roll was, but I couldn't name a single song of his and just stuff like that. And so I was like, you know what? There's some truth to like it's good that it's all independent, but I need to start listening to like Release Radar and stuff like that and just get
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
least get acquainted with what's going on in the mainstream. So
Right. I also love Lauren Watkins. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's
yep,
great.
yep,
She's amazing. And Mackenzie Carpenter is one that's not, um, she is not a deep cut.
yeah,
She's pretty well known. I love
yeah.
her too. She's great.
Nice. And so you try and are you trying to keep that fresh and up to date? And are you like actively always looking for new musicians, or do you kind of find yourself just like whatever's in front of you?
I do some digging from time to
Mm.
time. Um I really like to listen to new music when I'm traveling. So like if I have a long flight or just any flight, I'll try to like download what I want to listen to. Um and like spend some time while I'm traveling just like digging into new stuff. But if it's a super busy week for me and a new album comes out that I want to listen to, it's probably gonna get saved until a time when I
Yeah.
can really listen. I love to listen to music when I'm doing other things, but I really love to like dive into stuff when I have time and
Yeah.
really pay attention to like the lyrics and the production and who wrote it and all that good stuff. So
For sure, for sure. Do you find that you listen to music more or less when you're like if you're in like a really creative mood and you want and you're like writing a lot, do you find you listen to more or less music?
that's a really good question. I don't even know. I
Yeah.
don't know. Music music for me is everywhere.
Mhm.
Like it's in more places than I realize, especially because of, being a student at Belmont. Like
Yeah.
all of my classes are like listening to songs that my friends have written and like getting feedback from them. So it's so weird because now that you've asked me that, I'm thinking about that, and all of my classes have been like, what's a song that got you through a difficult time?
Mm.
Or let's all listen to that. Or what's your favorite, most recent song you've written? Or what's your favorite song you wrote in the last year? So it's a lot of listening, but not music that not isn't necessarily released.
Mhm.
Um, but when I'm not inspired, I watch the Beyonce documentary on Netflix. I don't know if anyone else has ever said that on your podcast before, but if they have, I need you to connect me with them because I think we would be best friends.
Fair. I can honestly say I don't think they have.
Okay, that's
It,
fair.
it's a lot I get a lot of Taylor Swift,
Okay.
like a lot of Taylor, and it's almost to the point now where it's like cool.
Yeah, it's kind of just it's an expected answer.
Yep. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so the fact that you brought up Beyonce, it's like that's actually a breath of fresh air at this point.
No, I'm not gonna say I wasn't a fan before, but
Yeah.
I had not given it much thought.
Yeah.
And it's on Netflix. It's her
Yeah.
Coachella documentary. And I'm in a group called CMA EDU. And every year we do a leadership summit where we go, and it's basically a conference for young music industry professionals.
Mhm.
And we got to hear from Beyonce's tour manager.
Oh, wow.
And, I raised my hand and I'm like, please tell me everything you know about the Coachella documentary. And he was like, it was pure craziness. So
Hmm.
it was really cool to make that connection because I think I watch it probably once a year when I'm
Hmm.
feeling like overwhelmed with, thinking about having a career in the music industry or just like need a creative boost. I will always resort to that.
Fair. Fair, fair. Now, we were originally supposed to try and do something around CMA Fest this year, but just our paths weren't
Yep.
gonna cross. And how did you okay, I know I put my number out on Instagram. Had you been following us on Instagram, or did you just kind of randomly stumble across our post?
I think I followed y'all. If you've
Okay.
done interviews with Belmont people before or anybody that I'm friends with, I think I was following y'all
Okay.
already.
I always nervous asking that question because usually it's me reaching out to them or reaching out to a musician. But when like I'd put out that post just because I had a couple of gaps in my schedule and I was like, let's
Mhm.
try and fill these.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
worked at CRS when we did CRS. I threw it out there and I was able to
Mhm.
fill in a couple of spots.
That's
And then
crazy. I was at CRS too. I don't know how we didn't run into each other.
were you doing like interviews and stuff, or were you like
I was
just
working with CRS, so I
okay?
wasn't. I probably wouldn't have put two and two together if
Yeah.
I would run into you. But yeah, I love CRS too.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
so
We'll be back at both events next year. CRS
yay.
CRS is a little bit easier for me to handle because it's all like in one spot, whereas CMA Fest is a little bit more spread out.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. So So outside of music, what do you like to do to kind of decompress? What's like a, I don't want to say a secret hobby, but you know,
Hmm.
or is music just
Shopping. Music is
assume
everything to me,
yeah,
but I do have some other things that I like to do. If I can think of them. I like shopping. That's not a great hobby. That's more of a problem. Um, Let me think. What else? So all of my friends are into pickleball right now,
of course.
and I really think I need to start learning how to play because I'm really competitive. So I think that would be a pretty good learning opportunity for me. But so I actually just accepted a leadership role with our Belmont bookstore. So I'm currently the president of the Belmont bookstore,
That's
and we are starting an ambassador program. So I've kind of fallen in love with student ambassador programs. Like I said, like I found a passion for content creation, like kind of during my time at Belmont, and a little bit in high school, but I didn't have any time because I was cheering and doing music. So,
that's
but I grew up hunting. That was always a hobby of mine. I grew up in East Texas, so
yeah.
like we would hunt and fish. And then I moved to Lake Travis and I cheered, and then I moved here and I'm doing a Kendra Scott ambassador program this year, an Altered State, and then a skincare brand that sponsored CMA Fest, actually Good Molecules.
Mhm.
So, I've kind of fallen in love with that and just a way to be super involved on campus and within the Belmont community. And I'm trying to soak up my last semester as a student. So, that's
Nice.
kind of my hobbies as of right now. It's more of work than a hobby, but it's so fun that it feels like a hobby.
Right. That's cool. That's cool. And the fact that you grew up in East Texas, I love that because every time I drive through East Texas, there's always the craziest things happening. I always
Oh.
see the craziest things. I was driving down, I was going
I
down,
don't
it
know
was
if I want to know, but
I
go
I
ahead.
was going down to Louisiana, so I think I wasn't on 10 at this point, but I was heading down towards 10
Mhm.
and I was in about as East Texas as it's gonna get. And this dude had this beat up pickup truck with no side panels on. So like it was just the truck bed.
Yeah.
And he had three dog cages stacked on top of each other with dogs, no straps, and he's just barreling down the highway. And I'm sitting there,
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh. Are you serious?
yeah, he was just barreling down the highway like nothing was gonna happen to these dogs. And I'm sitting there, I'm like sitting right behind him. I'm like, well, the dogs get kicked off. I guess I gotta stop, right? You know, and nothing happened. So
Oh man. You know what? I always will say I'm so glad I was raised in East
yeah,
Texas. And Lake Travis was a really big change for
yeah,
me, in Austin. And it ended up being a great move. And I loved where I went to high school. But East Texas is my hometown. I love it.
yeah. How long did you stay in Lake Travis?
So my family moved to Lake Travis the summer before my freshman year of high school.
Okay.
So I only went to high school there. And they still live there. So when I go home, it's in Austin. But I was born in Lindale and lived there up until I went to high school. So,
And then moved to Lake Travis, and you've been in Nashville what now? 4 years, maybe.
gosh, yeah, 4 years.
Wow.
Yep.
How's how's Nashville changed? Has I'm obviously being there 4 years, you're going to just change naturally as a musician. But
Mhm.
how much do you think Nashville has changed you as a musician?
Mm. Like I said, when I got to Belmont, um, I was in awe of all of the talent. And I think it can be overwhelming at times because there's almost so much to take in that it's overwhelming. And I
Mhm.
want the opportunity to meet everyone and write with everyone and work with everyone. And I think since coming to Nashville, Nashville really values songwriters. And in the Texas music scene, it's a little different. I'm not going to say they don't value songwriters, but I didn't really know the importance of songwriters until I moved to Nashville. And, writers' rounds are a really big thing here. And I think
Mhm.
that's starting to spread, but Nashville is a really big spot for that. And so when I moved here, I went to Belmont. I'm a songwriting major. So, like, I'm writing all the time. And I have really, really fallen in love with the art of writing songs.
Mhm.
And John really taught me that from the beginning, but, I had never really co-written until I moved here. And then I met some of my best friends in co-writes. And, I met the girls I wrote Cowboy Wanted with are both from Texas and went to Belmont. And it's just such a special way to connect with other creatives. And it's really that co-writing is writing in general is a hobby, but it's such a cool way to connect with people. And, your connection in the room, it moves to other people and it affects them and it impacts them. So it's just really cool to see that transition and how what's happening in the room can affect people and listeners. So I've really fallen in love with songwriting, and then um, BMI was a huge that award was really, really big for me, and just super honored to be um, recognized for that. So I think Nashville has really made me appreciate the art of songwriting.
Yes,
And yeah, it's really cool. I really love that the people here really value songwriters and their art and their talent.
absolutely. I 100% agree. And not that, like you said, not that Texas doesn't
Mhm.
value that as well.
It's a different environment for
Yeah.
sure.
It's one of those things where I feel like you you just kind of have to find your, like, I mean, I guess very similar in the way that Nashville is, where you got to find your tribe, but it's also from my experience, I've only been in Texas here 5 years. You find your tribe, and when you get together, you get together. Like if you, but you may go 6 months without seeing each other. Whereas Nashville, you're all where you need to be. Whereas Texas, sometimes you're in Austin, and it's like, oh, I got to go play in Dallas for 3 weeks. Just and you're just kind of all over the place.
Right.
So that
Well,
cohesion just isn't there.
yeah, and I think so BMI opened an office in Austin in 2016, I believe. And that's when I signed my PRO with BMI.
Yeah,
Um, and I met Mitch Ballard, who is a huge advocate for songwriters. And he, um, they opened that office when I was in high school. So I think that was a really big move for the Texas songwriter scene. And actually, a few years ago, I got to be a part of something called Texas Songwriter U,
mhm,
and you apply, and they pick 8 people to come, and they bring you to Texas. You have to be from Texas, and I mean, it was incredible. I don't know if you've talked to anyone else that's been part of it, but it's like a retreat, but it's a workshop. So it's like you're just in this really cool environment. It's super intimate, and Liz Rose and Jack Ingram listen to your songs and they give you feedback. And it's a super, super cool organization. And I'm so honored to be a part of, their first few years. I got to perform with Liz Rose um, at the Cindy Walker Days because of Texas Songwriter U. So they are doing great things for songwriters in Texas. And I think it's such an incredible organization, and then obviously BMI is supporting them, and the Texas Heritage Office is, they're doing as much as they can to get songwriters in Texas and to get them seen and heard, and it's really cool.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I've often believed that this kind of from like there's going to be a nice musical highway opening up over the next 10, 15 years, as like you start to see these artists that have been in Texas
Hmm.
for so long, these singer songwriters, and as they start to migrate to Nashville, and so it's going to be like from Austin to Nashville, this 35 to 40 or 35 to 30 to 40, just kind of this highway of fun and music. It's going to be amazing. So,
I you just made me realize that I just did this filming with a company called Chill Country, and they
mhm,
have blown up over the last few months. They started this it's almost like a PR content
mm,
filming, and all these artists, songwriters in Texas, when they're traveling through to their shows, they stop here and they film two or three songs.
Hmm.
Chill country has like gone viral over the
Yeah.
last few months. And they said that their goal is to get independent, aspiring artists seen and heard on their
Hmm.
platform, kind of like what you're doing. And I think
Yeah.
it's so cool. And I know that as a singer-songwriter, like it's so appreciated and it does not go unnoticed that y'all really care for us. And, you know, it's it's really important that y'all know how much we care.
Yeah.
And it's so cool that so many people are that passionate about music. And I think music brings people together and inspires people to do stuff like that. And it's so cool to see it get recognition. So,
Yeah.
super.
I love the doing like the solo acoustic, the the
Mm-hmm.
stripped down stuff. That's
Yes.
actually how we got our start. So back in 2016, that's what we started doing. Was just like solo acoustic stuff. Um, but I was living in New Mexico at the time, so it was like we had enough musicians to last us a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
then we had to start traveling out because not I lived in Roswell, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't even think that's in the country, let alone, you know, a small city, but let alone know where it's at. But we'd get every once in a while we'd get some musicians to come in, and it's like then we had to start traveling out, and I was ended up moving away because it just wasn't working, and now it's like I wish I'd have never given that aspect of it up. So,
I
but
love I love a stripped down version of a song. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. I love that you asked me what I'll do in a creative rut or if I'm feeling really creative and it'll be do a deep dive on YouTube of like my
yeah,
favorite songs stripped down on YouTube. I love that.
nice.
I really, really love that.
Have you thought about just for fun while you're at school, just doing like just banging out some acoustic recordings yourself, like just some straight?
Well, you know that you say that I do that very often
Mm.
and I just don't post them or do anything with them, but that's part of the requirement for some of my classes is to make demos and work tapes and like professional work tapes because I had to take 4 or 5 audio classes with my major, and I've learned that that's not a talent of mine. That is not a skill that God gifted me with, but I admire the people that can go in there and create magic because that's not me. But yeah, I do have some stuff that I've done from with class and which now that you say that, I need to be doing something with all that, which is a really cool idea for this next chapter. But yeah, Belmont is I will say they forced me to do that. That was not on my own. I would not have chosen to take any more audio classes than
Right.
maybe the beginner level, but
But you know what? I talked about this yesterday on the podcast. That is such a good, like even just like the baseline of audio
oh, it's
production.
so valuable.
Yeah.
It's so valuable. And it's incredibly hard at the same
Oh, yeah.
time.
It's like even the baseline stuff, it feels like they're speaking a second language to you. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I remember sitting down with my audio engineer when we first started doing this stuff, and he would explain to me like, okay, this is what I'm doing, like
Mm-hmm.
Trev, just like all these different things. And
Right.
I'm like, I don't hear a friggin' difference.
And it's like the levels and there's white noise and then you see where it peaks right there. You need to move all of these levels this way. Like
Mhm.
it's so much. There's so
Yeah.
much to learn.
Except now I am so like so I work in the TV industry, and I make like commercial advertisement,
Okay.
social media stuff like that. And I am so anal about my audio. Like people, clients, coworkers, they'll be like, "Why is your project like 10 minutes before it's due? Why are you still working on it?" It's like, because they sound like they're speaking in a tin can. I need to fix this. Now leave me alone. Just like all these
Yep.
things. They're like, it sounds fine. Just bring the audio bed up a little bit and you're good. And I'm like, I will know it's not right. Leave me alone.
I always say when I go to a show and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, like you sounded so good tonight." I'm like, "That was the sound guy." Like the sound engineer at my wherever I'm playing or if I'm doing a round or even like the Houston rodeo, that makes the biggest difference for me like how I feel on stage and, my performance and everyone else involved, the audience and everyone else. So I will say, as much as I really despise taking those audio classes, it did help me in that aspect of knowing when I go on stage and what I want to hear in my monitor.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It makes it easier for you to communicate with
Mhm.
sound engineers, production techs, all
Mhm.
that stuff. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Um, but I don't want to keep you too much longer here. It is Friday night. What's kind of the uh do you play a lot of shows now that you're still in school, or is it still kind of few and far
So
between?
I can't travel with my internship because it's on
Hmm.
Saturdays and that's the only requirement.
Yeah.
So I kind of told myself for this last semester, I'm gonna enjoy every last minute of being at Belmont and
Hmm.
soak up my internship. So if I have a few things coming up, most of them are around and then little things here and there, but next this spring I guess will be super busy for me. So keep an eye out for that. I'll be in Texas a lot. So I don't
Yes.
know if you um like to go to shows in the area, but if I'm ever in the area, I'll send you the info.
Yes, please do. I just recently set up my spot to do in-person podcasts.
Oh,
So,
awesome.
yes, I got I've had a few people come through. It's really hard because people for some reason don't like to stop in Waco. And it's like, really? Like Waco's cool. It's got its
Waco
own
is
thing.
so cool. I love Waco. I love Spice.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Spice?
No, I have not.
It's a sh it's shopping, so
Okay.
that's probably why. But if any of your followers are from Waco, I love Spice Village. You can go in there and
Oh,
a
okay.
bunch of little
I've never heard it referred to as Spice. Spice
okay,
Village, I've heard
all
of
right.
that. Okay, yeah.
My mom went to Baylor.
Mhm.
So when we go through Waco, we stop. And then obviously Magnolia, which I'm surprised people don't stop to see that.
Yeah. It's that honestly, it's kind of a hard sell. Unless you're into that sort of thing,
Mhm.
Magnolia is kind of a hard sell. Dr. Pepper will get more people to stop. Like if I say the Dr. Pepper Museum,
Mhm.
like I don't know what the draw is, but people love Dr. Pepper,
I do love Dr. Pepper.
right? I I had a friend that was out in the UK, and they found a honky tonk bar.
Was it
It
SJ?
Yes, yes,
I saw her post today. That's so funny. It's
yeah.
hilarious.
And I was just sitting there, I was like, really? You're happy that they have freaking Dr. Pepper?
And
Like,
the
what?
can looked not, it looked like the can looked like 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, whatever. I get it. Go for it. Do your thing. So,
That's so funny.
but if anybody wants to check out your music, any shows once you start announcing them, social media, all that fun stuff, where's the best place to find you?
I'm on all socials at Macy dot is spelled out DOT, and my first name is Macy. On Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Um, And I have a band in town. That's kind of the way I've been contacting people about shows is I can send out a message to people in the area. So, but yeah, be on the lookout for new music and lots of exciting things coming this spring. And if you're ever in Nashville and you want to see a really cool songwriters round, come to Backstage Nashville, and I might be
Yes,
performing there. So that'll be
yes.
cool.
I will definitely keep that in mind. I'm trying to figure out one more trip to Nashville this year.
Yeah.
It's hard because I've got a music festival that I'm going to in October and I got a couple other things I'm doing, so
Yep.
we'll
I love
figure it out.
Nashville, but I love Texas too. You got it. You've got a really good balance going on.
Oh yeah. It's I'm going to New Braunfels and I love New Braunfels. That place is
I do
don't
too.
yeah. Yeah. Their buddy of mine started a music festival there right
Oh,
as the pandemic kicked off.
mhm.
He started a little music festival at one of the campgrounds there, and
That's so cool.
it's been going for 5 years. So
My parents almost moved to Green,
okay.
so we love that area. That's such a cool area.
Okay. I often say if I'm staying in Texas, I'm going to that area. Like I don't care. I'm going to that area. You can't
Yep.
talk me out of it. So
Yep. Love it.
yeah. But also, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you all later.